Pleasure to be here tonight, especially with the news that I'm able to bring you that every year the Executive Committee of the World Wildlife Federation provides a report on a particular species of the animal world, puts it under the microscope, examining its current status, see whether the species thrives or is under any threat. And I'm pleased to announce that in 2002 the species that they have put under the microphone is the football media. I have an advanced copy of the committee's findings which I'll be happy to share with you in just a moment, but a few things first. I know that many of you will be looking at me at this function saying and asking the time-honoured questions, how many games has he played? Well, it's a fair question and the answer is 150. In the 1970s I played 150 games in the amateurs representing University Reds in F grade. There is only one reason I played in F grade, and that is that there was no G grade. On the manliness scale, playing for University Reds in F grade is about the equivalent of being a cast member of Lay Girls. And I played in a position at University Reds that I made my own, and that was the position of first petrified lair. Not that I was alone in being petrified, the degree of refined cowardice that my entire team was able to bring to the sport was quite remarkable. And this was reflected in the quality of the coaching staff we were able to attract at University Reds. And none greater than our coach of the mid-1970s, the human beach ball, a man called Kenny Frensham. Kenny was the man who invented the training night instruction, "OK fellas, let's pair up in threes." He told us one day against Westgarth that our handball was progressing backwards and that as a result we were being annihilated. He complained one day very loudly, "Oh, come on, ump, he's only got two pair of hands." And he was the man who one night at training invited us to come over here, fellas, under the lights where it's warmer. Playing F-grade amateurs is an experience I wouldn't have missed for the world, because without playing F-grade amateurs I wouldn't have had the opportunity to spend a Saturday afternoon standing next to a complete psychopath who had devoted 100 minutes of his very valuable time to the aim of trying to kill me. One team we had to play every season was a team called Coolaroo Rovers. And we had a lovely guy who played at centre-half forward for us, a young medico from Mildura called Bernie. He walked up to his opponent before the first bounce at Coolaroo saying, "Good luck today." His opponent looked at him and said, "I'm going to put you in hospital." Bernie said, "But I'm a doctor." The bloke said, "Good, you'll know your way around then." And I guess if you want to know how much the game of football has changed over the years, you need only look at the terminology used in the modern game, because the modern game is now chock-a-block full of expressions that would have meant absolutely nothing to us in the 1970s. Any number of expressions. Clanger. A clanger was something you dropped in the rooms in the middle of the coach's pre-match address. Loose in the back half was the feeling that immediately preceded a clanger. The fat side was what other teams called us. Turnover was something likely to happen late at night at an after-match function at a Greek soccer club. Backing back was something you did in the car park after the game, but never on the field. Backing back into a pack was something that was likely to lose you the respect of your teammates, because if one person did it, then another might. And once that catches on, well, it's just plain dangerous. Rotating your midfield off the bench would have made no sense at all to us. The midfield consisted of your best players. The bench consisted of your worst players. The idea that you would take your best players off to put your worst players on. What happened this year with Wayne Carey would never have happened at our club. Not one of us had a girlfriend. Neither would any of us have been seen dead with a girlfriend, because in the particularly curious logic of the 1970s, being seen with a girlfriend was a sure sign in the estimation of your teammates that you were in fact a homosexual. Mind you, there were some terms used 30 years ago that are still used in modern football that we were well aware of and well familiar with. The expression flooding was familiar to us. As we sat in the rooms before a game worrying about which opponent we would be playing on, we pissed our pants. This was called flooding forward. When we ran out onto the ground and actually saw who we were playing against, we shat ourselves. This was called flooding back. Tripping was then, as it is now, a problem. We were certainly fully aware that following on from Friday night, if you hadn't finished tripping by quarter time, you're unlikely to end up in the best players. Singing the club song was familiar to us as well, but in the 1970s it was different. Singing of the song after the game was done by players. But from watching television nowadays, it is clear that the rules have changed. Singing the club song is now something that is only allowed to be done by members of the board of directors, whose mouths are so stained with red wine that they'd be sent from the field under the blood rule. One player may be permitted to join the circle in case the board are so pissed they can't remember the words. And one person, and only one person, is now allowed inside the circle when the club song is sung at the end of a game, and that is any trainer who has absolutely no teeth whatsoever. And finally, there was actually one expression that we knew then that is never used now, and that is the expression player loyalty. It's hard to know when the concept of player loyalty diminished, went out the window, but for me, I know exactly when it was. It was when Darren Jarman left Hawthorn to go to Adelaide. As a Hawthorn supporter, watching him kick goals for Adelaide in the 97 and 98 premiership sides was a bit like coming home early from work and finding your wife in bed with John Holmes. Terribly distressing, but in its own way quite magnificent. Hello, Rex. I have here the report of the Executive Committee of the World Wildlife Fund as to the current status of the species known as the football media. Every year, the Environmental Committee of the World Wildlife Fund produces a report on the current status of various species of the animal world, and it pleases me to announce that this year it has produced its definitive report on you, the football media. I read from it tonight. One member of the species has had an extraordinary year. This is the Western Australian marsupial known as the Dennis Cometti. Related to the other Western Australian marsupials, the quokka and the malaxos, this marsupial is tall and smooth and is crowned with a large thatch of fur and eyes like Henry Bolte. In short, it looks like a cross between an owl and a giraffe, provided you are able to imagine such a hybrid wearing sunglasses and leather pants. This rare and priceless animal faced an uncertain year in 2002 where it might have vanished or it might have thrived. The committee is pleased to report that it has thrived. In 2001, enough was heard of it to suggest that it continued to exist. Researchers in Western Australian rainforests reported hearing an occasional centimetre perfect and the faint echo of like a cork bobbing on an ocean. But in 2002, there were many strong reports of hearing loud and clear its now traditional call of, "Oh, shut up, Dermot, for Christ's sake." The Terry Wallace. The committee has had concerns about the future of the Terry Wallace. It appeared at one stage that this species was going to migrate to Sydney, and the committee had grave concerns about how it would survive in such a harsh environment. The committee was then relieved to see that by the attire it wore to a press conference in August, consisting of a black shirt, a black suit and a red tie, that it had no intention of going to Sydney, but had decided to pursue a career selling aluminium cladding. It is the melancholy duty of the committee to report that it appears some members of the species are in danger of becoming extinct. And we speak specifically of the Bruce McAvaney and the Sandy Roberts. There is some limited proof of their continued existence. To the committee's untrained eye, the Bruce McAvaney appears now to be the weekend host of a stock market show on Bloomberg television. We don't know that we followed it, but as far as we could discern from the ticker on the bottom of the screen, it's bad news if you've got shares in a company called the Los Angeles Dodgers, because they're down by 12 points. As for Sandy Roberts, we are pleased to report that he continues to thrive despite the fears that he had gone where all Channel 7 personalities go to die. Channel 7. The committee has had many inquiries from concerned naturalists wondering what has happened to the large Italian gentleman with a big moustache who used to ride the boundary of a Friday night, who seems to have disappeared. The committee is not sure. We have made extensive inquiries but are not able to produce a definitive answer as to what has happened to him. But from all the available evidence, our best guess is that Tony Jones ate him. The Gerard Healy remains strongly in evidence. The Gerard Healy is a member of a small yet vocal subspecies which can often be found congregating together on a Friday night. This is the subspecies known as the "You're Quite Right, Eddie" species. The James Hird, an animal which resides in player land but sometimes visits media land, is an animal which possesses a remarkable hypnotic ability to cause other members of the species to sit around listening intently in rapt attention to every word, even though it is in fact saying absolutely nothing. The committee is pleased to be able to report the discovery of a previously undiscovered species, the huddo. To be accurate, the species has been known for some time but has changed drastically over the years. In the 1960s, the huddo was a quite large and freakish Tasmanian animal, measuring some 6 foot 3 inches, with a very large bottom and an uncanny ability to kick objects long distances and very accurately. By the year 2002, this animal was now found on the mainland in the Channel 10 area and now looked like a miniature turtle wearing one of Ian Hewittson's suits. The Michael Sheehan continues well in existence, a curious creature whose mouth is perpetually open. Sometimes words come out and sometimes they don't. But the mouth remains open, presumably just in case some words want to come out. The Ricky Nixon is still with us and is readily identifiable by its extremely weird call. What an extremely weird call. The Rex Hunt makes an excellent pet, though it does have an unusual habit in that it is constantly throwing things out of its box, usually chocolates or Mike Sheehan. The Patrick Smith has the ability to express up to 1,000 opinions, of which as many of 2 of them are actually logically consistent with each other. Though the ability to hold an opinion different from Graham Samuel remains only a theoretical possibility at this stage. The committee has received a lot of reports as to the status of a species of duck called the Wayne Carey. This species continues in existence, an unusual animal with some unique attributes. A very sensitive species which, if suffering great emotional hurt, will often seek out the company of another member of the species for a talk. Pardon me. Usually the relatively harmless great speckled gribus. The Wayne Carey is also unique in that if sufficiently emotionally wounded, it is the only member of the animal kingdom to seek to recharge its emotional batteries in the contemplative and deeply spiritual surroundings of Las Vegas. The Dermot Brereton speaks a language similar to English. This talented animal does a splendid job of making the complex completely unfathomable. The committee would also like to discuss at length and critically the species known as the Eddie Maguire. But the committee's not that stupid. Some species have undergone a name change. The player who used to wear number 35 for Collingwood is now to be referred to as the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia and Marvel. The Tim Lane is an animal possessed of great integrity, has worked for the ABC since it was 18 months old, and by age 55 will have acquired enough money to buy one of Eddie Maguire's suits. And finally, the committee has decided that the strain of octopus known as the Stevenson will remain, as it has done for the last 20 years, a protected species. Have a good night. I've got to go to bed. Cheers.
That's all right. Outstanding stuff, Ross. I know on 3AW on Monday mornings when Channel 9 used to have the football, you had the committee file, and amazing how many people were just ringing and offer their best Dennis for the year. What was your favourite?
It'll come down to two. Well, an old one, a historical one. I think a great favourite was when Gerard Healy said that they say at Collingwood that you'd have Darren Lockyer kick for your life, kick for goal for your life, and Tarkin Lockyer. And Dennis said, I'd rather have my mother, not a great footballer, but at least she'd care. Or, and the ball's taken by Uze. Keep an eye on him. A great footballer, ordinary Scrabble hand.
Ross Stevenson. Good on you, Ross. And